Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Cash Flow Positive. You made it for the next episode of Cash Flow Positive. I want to congratulate you and thank you as a listener for listening to this show. Thank you for your support. And if you've already left a review, awesome. I really appreciate it. If you're new to the show, buckle up, strap in, whatever you need to do to get prepared, because I'm going to call it like I see it. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today in talking about the current state of the industry. For those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Kenny Bedwell. I'm the host of the Cash Flow Positive Show, where I dive into all things short-term rentals and how to cash flow with real estate. I also talk about boutique hotels occasionally and commercial investing as I do that journey myself. And so, pay attention and get ready as we dive into today's topic, which is current state of the industry. Now, there's two parts to this episode or this topic. The part two, I have a really good guest. I'm not going to spoil it. We talk for about 40 minutes. It's a pretty long conversation about the current state of the industry and what we're seeing and different viewpoints. I really don't want to touch on any of those points that we've done because it would just sound like a, broken record. Just hear the same thing over and over and over. So today I'm going to hit on three things I'm seeing that are in the industry and how we as investors should be approaching it, especially, investing in short-term rentals. So number one, let's talk about cause and effect. So I tell everyone this, like when you're choosing to work with individuals, professionals, okay, whether it's a realtor, a lender, a coach, okay, or, a mastermind or whatever it is, you need to be thinking about the person you're talking to. You need to be thinking about what's their primary driver, right? What's their incentive, okay? Anyone who says, I do this just to help people, and they're charging for a service or a product or whatever, they're charging money, right? Just helping people, that's not 100% true, okay? You're missing part of the equation. Look, I love helping people, right? I love helping and seeing people successful and getting wins. I mean, that is a huge motivating factor for me when somebody who is not even a client reaches out to me and is like, Kenny, I found this great property in this market you talked about, and it's making lots of money. Man, that is exciting stuff. I love hearing those stories, right? Okay. But at the same time, too, like I charge people for my services, right? I am taking time away from my family to do this. And frankly, if it was between my family and everyone else, I would just stick to my family. However, I have to be compensated to pay for the bills. So there is some sort of incentive beyond just helping people for Kenny, right? And the same is true about everyone else who is in this business, vendors. I'm just going to say vendors, but really that's all encompassing of, the services, right? So like whether they set up your property, whether they teach you or coach you, there's an incentive beyond just helping you. Okay. I want to add to that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? That's pretty normal. Someone's sacrificing their time to give you value, which it should have an ROI, right? That is a no brainer. If I can make you way more money than you pay me, like, why wouldn't you do that? Right. So, I mean, that's, the logical way of thinking of it. But the reality is like the services are out there and people are incentivized, but we have to understand how they're incentivized because when we're taking their information, we have to look at it and go, they're giving me specific information. These vendors or these people are giving me specific information to understand about how to be successful in this industry or to find a good deal or good market or whatever it is. But they're incentivized in a specific way. So the information they're giving me, it directly correlates to how they're incentivized. Okay. Like, let me give you another example. I help people find deals. People pay me to help them find deals. Okay. So guess what I talk about nonstop? How to find deals, how to find markets, where to find opportunities. Okay, pretty much. I do throw in some operational stuff too, which is important. But the reality is like, where am I incentivized and what am I talking about correlates together. And so where I'm going with this is very important because in 2026, as things tighten up just a hair bit more than 2025, as there's a little bit more competition in the space, and that could be vendors, that could be even properties too, and what we're doing and how we're doing. Pay attention to what these people are saying and then understand where they're coming from. So if somebody is on YouTube or somebody's on social media all doom and gloom about Airbnb, why are they doom and gloom about it? And it's not just to give you free information to help you out. It's to some sort of something they're selling in the background that correlates with the message that they're sharing. Okay. Now, on the flip side, I see realtors, the same thing too. My market's not saturated. We actually have so much demand, and it's just growing every single year. And then they share some bit of information, like a tad bit of data that's like a partial truth, but not the full story. And then they claim that it's like, like this is the best market in the entire country. Understand I mean, that's an obvious one, right? Well, yeah, you're a realtor in that market. You're trying to sell me crap in that market. Like, no wonder. But understand the incentive, right? Understand where they're coming from. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is 100% wrong, but we just have to be careful. So, in the current state of the industry for 2026, my first point is be careful on who you choose to work for, because a lot of people are selling crap. Okay. The market has shifted. The market has changed. It's becoming more professionalized. It doesn't mean the crap they're not selling, they're not saying it's professional, but they're selling hypes and dreams from years before, whether that's in their particular market, whether that's, a lender with their rates and the fees and the things that they tell you, oh, well, it's not like this. But, on the flip side, like, let me give you I think specific examples are going to be better here, or it's not going to be clear at all. So I know a lender out there that is promoting like really, really crazy low interest rates. So like interest rates right now are like for like a DSCR are going to be like high sixes, maybe even the sevens, right? Okay, there's a lender who's like, well, I can get you not a DSCR, but a 10% down loan, in the high fives, low sixes. Okay, well, that sounds really great. Okay, no or little to no fees. Okay, but then they don't tell you that. Well, they tell you, but you don't understand. It's not a 30-year fixed like the DSCRs or like the traditional second home loans. It's a different type of product that is what we call an ARM or another type of loan. Okay, that's actually turns into more hard money, and so with variable rates, meaning they change. And so when you think about it, and they're selling like 5-year arms, meaning that in 5 years, your interest rate is fixed at whatever, so we'll call it 6%. And in 5 years, it can change, right? Well, you better hope interest rates are lower in 5 years. If not, they're going to go higher. And we're seeing this for folks who are doing this, who did 3 or 5-year arms in the last, imagine if you did this same type of opportunity, you took the same type of loan in 2020 or 2021. That was 5 years ago. That's crazy to think about. That was 5 years ago, right? But the reality is, like, if you took an ARM in 2020, 2021, interest rates were in the what? High twos and threes. So if you took an ARM and didn't really think about it, you're now going to be bumped up to 6% over double what your interest rate is. Okay. And I'm not saying interest rates are going to go to 12% in 5 years, but you got to be careful with these types of loans and understanding, like, okay, this person's offering me a really good deal, meaning like they don't have a lot of fees, they have a lower interest rate. What's the kicker? We have to be asking ourselves that in 2026, right? What's the kicker? That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad loan product for this deal or a bad loan product for you, or, with the realtor and pushing the market, it's a bad market. No, it doesn't mean that at all. And that's what I'm saying. Or it's a bad coach or guru that you heard online because they're all doomsday. But we have to understand what the incentive is or what's the kicker in 2026 in particular, because everybody is selling something. Okay. And like I mentioned before, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you think there's something wrong with that, that doesn't make sense. But there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to understand what the kicker is. What's the incentive? Because that helps us understand how that person is going to motivate us, or how they're motivated, and what the amount of trust and reliance you need to put on that person. And so, for example, a realtor, if they're really trying to sell you that house, obviously they don't get paid until they get closed on the deal. So any of the numbers they're going to give you, they're going to look very optimistic, right? For the most part. And so they're not going to, now granted, they don't want to like lie to you, but at the same time too, they're going to say, well, somebody down the street's doing, $200,000, but not give you a lot of context. Like, oh, hey, you need to put in an extra 300K into the property just to get that 200K. Or, hey, oh yeah, that person actually has private beach access, or, they're right on the water and your property isn't. Some realtors will actually leave that information out, right? It's a sin of omission that they're most guilty of. I'm not saying every realtor, but when we understand how they're incentivized, that leads us more to the, the old saying, trust but verify, the verification, what we need to verify and how we need to rely on that. So understanding that is really critical when if we're trying to be successful in 2026, because we can't afford the mistakes. There's not that much leeway or wiggle room for a mistake made in 2026. Okay. Point number two, finding deals, where to look. So vendors aside, now markets. Okay. The best opportunities, let's call a spade a spade. The best opportunities are in markets that aren't like hyped. Okay. Aren't in the popular markets, frankly, aren't even in beach markets. They're so hard to find stuff in beach markets that makes sense. And someone, oh, well, I heard somebody found a 20% deal in a bull Nikes. Don't believe it. And look, I mean, you can dump in hundreds of thousands of dollars into a property to force money in, but that doesn't make it a good deal. Gross ROI alone doesn't make it a good deal. Gross ROI, which is essentially gross revenue divided by purchase price, gives you a percentage. But essentially what it means is gross revenue. Gross revenue of a property doesn't make it a good deal for two key reasons. Number one, you're not including expenses in that. Okay. And especially I'm picking on beach markets today, apparently, but especially in beach markets, we see rising insurance rates, right? And in areas that are prone to natural disasters too. California, there's some properties that aren't even insurable anymore, right? And so insurance costs are going up, which completely changes your numbers. So you have to have higher gross revenue. But if you're only relying on gross revenue to be attracted to a market or even a particular property, you're only seeing half the picture. So really making sure your numbers are ran appropriately. But once again, we got to back up a little bit. It all starts with where we're looking and what we're looking for. And so the markets, okay, a lot of the good markets out there are just the markets people are not talking about. And there are tons. I'll give you an example. I bought in Dallas last year. We bought a property in Dallas, or it's in Fort Worth, Texas. I've talked about this before, but it's a cool property. But here's the thing. It's not like there weren't already short-term rentals there, right? There's thousands. So why did we go in a quote unquote heavily regulated, you could argue saturated market where there are barely any returns? Because we saw opportunity. We saw holes in the market to take advantage of that. And I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. Those are almost everywhere where people just aren't like overhyping them or talking about them or rushing to. A lot of the markets that people are rushing to, chasing is what I call it. These are just the ones that are talked about all the time on social media. You know the ones, okay? They're overplayed. They're already found out. Okay? You can go into a market that already has short-term rentals that nobody's talking about, and there could be thousands and still find lots of success because you found opportunity there. But what I want to point out with that is you're finding what I call independent success, meaning success that you found, not it could be you personally, or you heard about it, or you have an idea for someone, or inspired by somebody, but basically you are doing something essentially innovative in a market. So, for example, I'm not going to get too specifically because I don't want people will literally copy exactly what I say because it's getting a little annoying, but I get it. I get it. I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, God, I need to be careful. So I had a client who bought a property in an undisclosed market. It's a popular market, not a hype market, not the one you see on social media, but there are lots of short-term rentals there, just like the Dallas area. And they bought it near an area where there are a bunch of wedding venues. Okay. Now, were there no Airbnbs there? No, there were. What we noticed in the data was that the properties that were larger bedroom count near the wedding venues were doing very well. Okay. But we looked at those properties and we're like, man, they are basic. Okay. Meaning they were nice on the inside. They were updated, but they had basic design, basic furnishings, basic outdoor amenities, and nothing special about them at all. And then we checked out the wedding venues themselves and we noticed they didn't offer any housing. So we're like, hold up, wait a minute. There's a hole in this market here. There's some opportunity, meaning like there's an underserved clientele coming to this area and coming to this market that they're not really finding. There's not a lot of housing options for them, right? That's essentially what we're doing. So we had a client take a chance on that. And it's not like, hey, you buy this property and it's going to fail because, it's in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't. Okay. But it is more targeted towards wedding venue guests. And guess what? He called all the wedding venues and 90% of them were like, absolutely. You're right near us. We'll promote you. And it's a great tie off because people always complain about they don't have anywhere to stay. And it was just like, holy crap, we found something here. And he is crushing it, absolutely crushing it. He's got a beautiful property too. But my point being is like, I know I said be innovative. Like that doesn't mean be like that was innovative. There weren't people targeting that specific guest avatar, especially in the way that we were going about it. And so the biggest thing that we need to think about in 2026 is how can we target specific guest avatars and niching down within the markets that aren't overhyped. Because this stuff is overplayed in the Smokies. This stuff is overplayed in Asheville and North Georgia and in the Lake Tahoes and Scottsdale and Poconos and Bradenton in Orlando's and Myrtle Beach and really any of the beach markets. I mean, there's only so many guest avatars that are going there, right? And so, and people, there's thousands of people, but they're always talked about on social media and people are constantly going there. And honestly, just look at the success of all the gurus and where they've invested and they've shared that and people try to go and copy that. Like there are other places out there, Nashville's and Miami's and so on. These are all overhyped areas for sure. But there are other places out there. I did a whole episode on top markets. Go listen to that. If you're like, well, what other places, Kenny? Just go listen to that episode. There are other places out there that you can find success and there's holes and opportunities in the market because of the amount of demand in that area. Okay. Near major cities. Hint, hint. It doesn't have to be in major cities. It could be near it. We talked the driving distance thing, 3 to 4 hours. Okay. So we talked about the vendors. We talked about finding markets and finding deals. The last thing that I want to mention, current state of the industry. Number one, we're going to see a lot of the same that we saw last year. I just don't really see we're not going to see a crash. We're not going to see an increase by any means. It's going to be kind of year over year steady, right? Dip in some markets like 5 to 10%, but that'll be negligible for a lot of you who have top performing properties. But what we are going to see are, once again, the increase in the amount of people who are professionalizing the hosting game. And so what we need to be thinking about in 2026 in the current state of the industry, and this ties into what I just talked about earlier, is the innovation thought process for our properties. So specifically targeting the guest avatar, but adding amenities and doing things that other people aren't doing. Okay. Playing chess, not checkers is what I call it. So what I mean by this is I saw a good friend post on in a private group. So he'll call me out, but whatever. If he's listening, I don't know if he listens to this. Probably doesn't. But anyway, he posted something about I'm creating a game room. What do you think I should add in here? It was kind of it's like a really long game room. He's like, I'm thinking about adding, arcades, pool table, foosball, a mural. Like, should I add a mural like this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, it's so overplayed. How many people are doing that? You know what I mean? Like the foosball or air hockey, the pool table, 3 arcade machines from Wayfair. A muralist comes out for $5,000. Maybe you put some lighting in there and some chairs and a TV and you call it a day. Like, how many people are doing that? Like, if you're going to spend, I mean, that type of level. So we got $5,000 for the mural. The arcade machines are about, I don't know, maybe 300, 400 a pop. So we'll call it $1,000 for that. Okay. So you're at $6,000 and then you got the pool table and air hockey. So maybe you're talking all those two things together. Maybe you're at $7,000 and then some lighting and seating and stuff. Maybe we'll call it a budget of $8,000 total with the TV and whatever. Okay. So $8,000 total budget. What if you went all in on one key thing for $8,000, or maybe you spent a little bit more for $10,000 if it was really awesome? Okay. I said, hey man, if you got the budget, the way the room was shaped, I was like, dude, put in like a really cool little bowling alley lane, like legit bowling alley lane that you can do. And they have them like in, I've seen them in places in Orlando. Do something cool like that. Not like some cheesy, like, oh, you go pick up the pens and put it. No, like make it legit. Assuming that works within the budget, obviously. It doesn't have to be that idea, but like do one thing so well that it just can't be replicated, or it's going to be difficult for someone else to replicate in that market. That one thing that's going to stand out that everyone's going to be like, wow, that is a cool bowling alley, or that's a cool game room, or whatever you're going to do. Like put 20 arcade machines in, not 3. Scrap the pool table, scrap the foosball. When we add all these things, it's like we're trying to market to everyone, but in reality, we're marketing to no one because everyone's doing the exact same thing. It's the same pool tables, the same, and they're getting kickback from Wayfair because I mean, I don't know how much money. Whoever makes those pool tables is freaking rich because everyone's doing the exact same stuff, the exact same pool tables, everything. And it's like most markets, people are starting to add these things to it. Let's think chess, not checkers. Let's not just follow the next move. Let's not just follow what everyone else is doing or the guru said to do, this time around. Let's think ahead. Let's make our properties unique, make them stand out, and make them special. I think that is what you need to be doing in 2026, not I'm just going to add a high level of design and decor in the 5 amenity package. Okay. Obviously, some markets you have to do that, but then you can obviously, I want you to think about something else to add that's unique or a style or something. But like, do something else, please change it up. Wow me. That's not wowing me. For 8 grand, I mean, like, just get creative. Take some time. Like, I think really the reality is like a lot of people have the budget to do something unique. They won't take the time to think about it, and it's not something that you're just like, hot dang, I've got it in 5 minutes. It might take you a few hours. It might take you a few days, like plugging and playing, talking to Chat GBT, talking to friends, family, like looking on Airbnb for inspiration in different types of markets that are similar that are on other parts of the country. Literally spending your time and doing serious research on this because it can be the difference in thousands of dollars and how much marketing and effort you have to put into the property. All the ideas, the unique ideas that we've done for our properties were not thought up overnight. They took several iterations. They took a lot of time and energy and planning, and then the execution to get them done was insane. But all of that is a moat. So, for example, our triple indoor simulator, sports simulator with the 3 screens, 3 projectors, you walk into it, it's an immersive experience or stadium seating. Okay, number one, that took several iterations with the designer. And then number two, obviously the cost, but cost aside, the where we had to buy it from. We had to buy it from a different country and we had to get it shipped in. And then we had to hire someone to set it up right and to teach someone else how to troubleshoot if there were any problems. Like it was very technical. Okay. Now I don't recommend that for everyone. And obviously that's going to come with pros and cons. But what we're finding though is people love it and it sets our listing apart from everyone else. It's not just the pickleball and the basketball and all. We have that too, but we have these big time amenities that separate us. So one or two things, and like I said, it doesn't need to be crazy expensive if you get creative with it. Just take the time to get creative with it, and that will help set you apart. And that's what you got to do in 2026. All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. On the next episode, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about the same thing, but not those 3 same points I mentioned. They're going to be slightly different, more in terms of what the market's doing, especially in the real estate transaction side, and how we can prepare to buy correctly in 2026. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. And don't forget the STR Scale Summit coming up on February 28th and March 1st. This will be in New Orleans. Would love to see you there if you're interested in attending that event. All about how to scale up to luxury short-term rentals, boutique hotels, micro resorts, and other commercial assets. Go to strscalesummit.com and you can find more information there. All right, my name is Kenny Bedwell, and I will see you on the next episode of Cashflow Positive.